Welcome everyone, this is your host Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. This time I wanted to give my thoughts on the first session of the Vampyrvania campaign because there are so many great things to talk about. This session went really good, really well. There were a few hiccups when it comes to remembering certain powers, abilities, and mechanics, but that is not as important when compared to role playing in a tabletop role playing game. The mechanics, you can learn them as you play the game, but the role play, the intent or attempt to actually play a role of being that character in the game world, that was amazing. There have been many tabletop RPGs that attempt to portray or represent video game type of situations, but oftentimes players do not feel as if they are too different from your typical tabletop RPG. They could play this or that role playing game that is supposed to represent a situation in a certain video game, could be a platformer, could be a video game RPG, could be anything, but it still feels like it's not it's not too different from your average, let's say, Dungeons and Dragons session. But even Dungeons and Dragons can become quite magical as long as you actually play the role. You can play tabletop RPGs however you like. Nobody is stopping you. Don't get fooled by the how you say mental sickness that is called gatekeeping. There is no way they can keep you away from playing tabletop RPGs. You can enjoy tabletop RPGs however you like. There's not going to be like a gate that descends and blocks you from enjoying tabletop RPGs. You can purchase any tabletop RPG out there and you play it with your friends. You can play it solo. You can do whatever, right? But very few groups in comparison. You know that our hobby has become really popular in the recent years. No, it's not like the most popular hobby, but it is more feasible when compared to a few decades back. Now you can find people to play tabletop RPGs a bit easier compared to back then, but very few actually roleplay. And in this case, the three players are experienced in playing tabletop role-playing games, but they play a more, how you say, they play the game. But oftentimes they could be skipping the role in order to have out-of-character conversations. And like I said, if you enjoy that, that is great. Keep on doing it. But when it comes to my sessions, I always uh, ask my players to play a role and play a game, and that's what they did because the actions become so intense, the situations, the encounters. It feels as if you are traveling. You have just made a journey with your friends at the table. How magical, how beautiful is that? I even pointed out that sometimes when you fumble, it's when the situations become really intense. And you saw all of the participants playing the role. You saw Yukiro as the half vampire, the Vampire, as herself, because she's actually a character in the game. Yukiro is the name of her character, using those fireballs like Alucard in Castlevania that has inherited that fireball ability from Dracula. She also used her staff when necessary, but she held back. And of course, this video is going to contain spoilers of the session. So if you haven't seen it, please check out the playlist in the description. But she refrained from turning into a wolf or a bat because the townspeople are already very afraid of her. So if if they saw her casting fireballs, shooting fireballs, well, maybe she's kind of like a magician, right? In her half vampire state, that's probably the extent of her powers. But if she suddenly started to shapeshift, perhaps they would even completely mistrust her. In the case of Nikos, he was pulling some pretty crazy Castlevania stunt type of jumps, flips. So you can, I was visualizing him jumping all over with the mind's eye. I could see him jumping on the statues, jumping over the enemies, backflipping, pure Castlevania combat. And I really liked in the case of Juan, his character felt like a bit like a cross between Saifa Belnades and Saint Germain from Castlevania. Mysterious, sometimes making some jokes, but sometimes those jokes they feel like targeted, calculated, like there is some method. His madness, and he was also employing all sorts of spell effects. So the entire group like it meshed together so well, and they still had a lot of potential. Like I said, Yukiro held back from using all of her vampire powers. In the case of Nikos, he was very focused on his acrobatics. He forgot a trait of his character to do extra attacks. And in the case of Juan, he had some really good ideas, creative ideas on how to employ his spells. But like I said, you can only do so much in a particular situation and in a single session. It's going to be very interesting to see how the characters evolve as they progress, not only on their personalities or the way that they fight. Sometimes you remain in the archetypes, right? In some other cases, those archetypes change as time passes. It is fine either way. But mechanically speaking, it's going to be quite intriguing to see how they employ their sub weapons, their powers, their abilities, and how they interact with the environment itself. Overall, a very enjoyable session. And like I always say, roleplay solves everything, even those moments of hesitation that they started to describe things in the future, because we agreed upon to describe things in the present, in the now, to have that maximum immersion. Even those moments when they went into the future, it felt as if the character was hesitating for a moment. That happens in real life, happens in fiction. Sometimes become, how we say, uncertain as to how to take action in a particular risky situation. So overall, great session, and I'm super looking forward, very excited to play the next session next Monday. Hopefully, they will survive because sometimes there could be some tragic, epic deaths. But I wonder if they will become like the Castlevania heroes that make it throughout the entire game. We shall see. But like I said, that is also a very important highlight or a point of importance. Yeah, Nikos mentioned how it actually felt like a video game, like a level in Castlevania. In other tabletop RPGs, if you're not role playing, you could stall. You could suddenly pause and start to talk about your characters, and then make some out of character jokes. Juan gave a perfect example of making jokes in character. If you think of a joke, say it in character, laugh in character. But if you suddenly just stop to have a conversation about the characters, or you stop to tell a story about the characters instead of actually interacting with the game world as one of those characters, then the magic could be lost. But because they did not do that, they remained in character. Then they were actually in that world of Castlevania. In this case, Vampyrvania, the setting of Nachtlandia, rather a Castlevania inspired setting. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative and entertaining. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, you're joining as a member using the super thanks button. Take a look at the information in the description and in the pinned comment. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. And of course, remember, roleplay solves everything. Once again, thank you and see you later.